In sports, the scoreboard doesn't tell the full story, but Netflix does. Stories about dads who happen to be world-class quarterbacks and a battle for the heart, soul, and direction of the multi-billion-dollar business of F1. Whether you're a diehard fan or you're brand new, Netflix has the stories for every type of fan. You can watch these incredible sports stories like Quarterback, F1 Drive to Survive, Untold, and many more now on Netflix.
Welcome to the Scarlets Supporters Pembrokeshire podcast. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Scarlets Supporters Pembrokeshire podcast. Westra is Bestra. Joining me as always is Big M. How are we, Martin?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Half term, the kids are home. I'm sleeping in, and they're going to cause some riots today. So I'm looking forward to this one. How are you yourself, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Well, between your kids and my dogs, we it could be a bit of a fun one today. It could be an exciting one.
You know what? I've just realised this. Since we started doing this, almost every week you're comparing your dogs to my kids.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I to that.
That's the joy of having grown-up kids is they tend to leave you alone. They're either still in bed or they leave you alone because you're not cool and stuff. So you've got that to come, mate. It's quite nice, but disappointing at the same time because you realise how old you are. But yeah, it comes to us all. But so we got so much stuff to talk about this week. I mean, literally loads and loads and loads. And if we started going on about all the WRU stuff this week, which is important, and it's it is the big story, and it is all of that. There's so much stuff to go through. If we did that, we wouldn't have time for rugby. And what we do is rugby. So what we'll do is we'll focus on the Scarlets this week. We'll focus on that performance on Saturday and the girls' teams and the boys' teams and community rugby. And then next week, when it's in theory, should just be the England game to review, we'll have more of a chat about it then. So we're not going to ignore it. We're not going to say it's not happening. We're just going to say it's not for us for this week. And we want to focus on the positive stuff, such as the Scarlets game on Saturday night. So tell me your thoughts on that game on Saturday night, my friend.
Mate, I was bouncing. I don't know what it is. I know winning rugby can have an effect on you, but the atmosphere that's been building in that ground all season, and it just keeps getting better and better. I think the official stats were just over 7,500 in there, but if felt a lot more. It was riveting. It was enthralling. You just felt part of everything, and you just watching the rugby and watching some of the things that we're doing, and it just makes it all the better. I mean, I love rugby. I always have, always will, even when we're in the doldrums, and that could quite easily make a normal person fall in love with rugby, just being in that environment.
I think the thing was it was exciting stuff. Sometimes you can win and have a bonus point with like 5 scrum tries or 5 line-out drives and stuff, and it wasn't that. It was exciting, interesting rugby to watch. It was, like you say, if you were watching that as your first game when you're going, this is what I come to see every week, then you're 100% committed straight away. You're in, because it was just, we seem to be running at space again. When we're throwing the ball, it's sticking. There was one bit where Fafita literally caught the ball on the tops of his fingers, and it was kind of like his hand was bent back, but the ball would just seem to be like sticking to the end of his fingers, and then it came in. It's stuff like that you just, sitting there and cheering again, which, that some of the victories that we've had on those last 6 wins on the bounce now, And since that South Africa trip, really, we've been playing some good rugby. And I've kind of been waiting for something to go wrong. Do you know what I mean? I kind of think, maybe we nicked a couple there, or we've got away with a couple. That game on Saturday felt like comfortable. Do you know what I mean? It felt like we were actually there and on the pitch.
I'm 100% with you that I was really worried going into that game. I mean, anyone who listened to the podcast last week, I was like, our history against Edinburgh is not the best. They seem to be a bit of a bogey team for us. Always going to back the boys. You can't not back the boys. But I was really, I was on a bit of a knife's edge. And yeah, it literally, apart from maybe the first, 2 minutes where they did try moving the ball around and they got a teeny bit of joy. There wasn't a second in that game where I thought, we could seriously lose this. And, watching the game as any rugby fan, it's lovely to have those feelings, unless you're Leinster, then it probably gets quite boring. But yeah, just watching it, seeing some good stuff, not knowing, but feeling that you're not losing this game is really nice.
Well, for me, when I looked at it, in rucks, Edinburgh were committing 3 and 4 men in every ruck, and what that meant was like on their ruck and on our ruck, and we were only committing 2, maybe 3 men on our ruck. On their ruck, they were like, I counted at least 2 rucks in the first half where they had 4 men in, and even our tackler was back on his feet. We had no men in the ruck, and they had 4 men committed to a breakdown. So it's things like that, and you look at it and you go, okay, we've obviously worked on something here, and it's paying off. Because by the time you got to the second and third ruck, we just had numbers everywhere. And that's why, with like the Fafita's interception try, I think we had like 8 on 4 in that defensive line. Do you know what I mean? We had 2 players on each of theirs because they just kept over committing to rucks, and we made the most of it.
Yeah, that part of the game, I know it's still early on, but that was insane. And they had the ball at the line out, and they played 2 phases of crash balls. And the first tackle I think was Costello on Mata, and I'm gonna put credit. I love Costello as a player, but his appetite as a 10 to defend and to tackle is amazing. He could quite easily, fit in the back row. That's how much he loves to tackle, which is, is not unheard of, but is very uncommon, especially for a 10 in Wales.
Yeah.
And once he's made that tackle, I know Sean Hawley pointed this out on Scrum 5, but you'll see it from every player in the Scarlets, especially since the start of December. The moment you make that tackle, that desire and that work rate to roll away, get up and get back in line has been top notch. And that is exactly what happened through those 2 phases. And we just had so many men, like you said, and our line speed has been pretty good, and it's been getting incredibly consistent over the full 80 minutes. And that's what caused Bennett to have a bit of a fumble, and Fafita was just like, I'm having that. I'm going to take a casual stroll down the other end of the pitch, and I'm going to put the ball down. Are you okay with that? Yeah, let's do it.
But that was his own 10-yard line, And this is a guy that plays
65 meters. Oh wow!
But this is a guy that plays second row most of the time, So that's how athletic and quick our pack is now. We got second rows, back rows, outpacing wingers over half the pitch, and when you look at it in those terms, it's the change in focus from being a set piece. We used to have some big, heavy set piece boys, and we're much more dynamic now. It's working. it's definitely working now. Nobody can look at that game on Saturday and say, you sneaked a couple, or you got lucky with a couple, or there was a referee decision, or anything like that. It was those boys just actually played really, really well. And people like Dan Davis and Sean Evans in the turnovers. Oh my Lord! I mean, just every time they went in, there was a turnover. It was superb to watch. Absolutely superb.
I mean, we've raved about Dan Davis. I mean, I think everybody has, and a lot of people were calling for him to be involved with Wales. And thankfully, Gatland doesn't pick on form, so we've kept him. Yeah. But Sean Evans is always, as for the player, for me now. I'm not just talking about this game. I'm talking about in general over the years. I've always been, kind of middling with him, because he started off as an open side, and then he converted a hooker, and obviously everyone who's watched the Scarlets will know that Sean Evans is probably the smallest hooker you'll ever see. And you do get that concern that okay, he's not going to be a ball carrier. You want your hooker to be a nice big ball carrier. You want someone in the mold of Ken Owens and Dewi Lake who will just truck our ball up. And what Sean loses in that sort of physicality and attack, he gains so much in his work at the ruck. I mean, he is a nuisance. I mean, he can be in that. He could be 7-on-1 against him, and he will find a way to slow it down. And that's what a nuisance ruck player does. And he was outstanding for we know he's not the first or second choice hooker, but he seems to be pushing Davos really hard for that third spot. And
Taylor
he offers so much. Yeah,
Taylor came on.
Taylor came on. He was pretty good. But I'm talking about Sean by here. We'll talk about Taylor in a little bit. But I think someone like Sean, you've got to really admire and respect because of where he's come from. He's come as a 7. He would, I think he was like 22, 23 before they said, you know what, this isn't really working. You're not going to get much of an opportunity here. Let's change you to hooker now. Instead of, when you're 16, 17, 18, 19.
Yeah.
So for him to go through that and to, still be worthwhile, still be fighting for a regional place is outstanding. And, I love a good jackler, and he is a good jackler.
Well, the reason I said about Taylor Davis was you just look at the strength and depth that we've got there. And, and we've got boys in the Wales under-20s, and we've got boys coming through from the under-18s and all of that kind of stuff. And, we've got some real strength in depth building in the front row now. And front row is not a position that you in the backs, you come through a lot earlier as your speed, your pace, all of that kind of stuff. But front row, you need to work at that for, a good 5 or 6 seasons at senior level before you get to that top level. And you look at the depth chart that the Scarlets have got in the front row now, and you actually go, do you know what? I think we're gonna be okay for the next 4 or 5 seasons. Regardless of what happens with professional rugby in West Wales or whatever, Scarlets are going to be okay for a good, 10, 15 years in the front row now. We've got some real quality coming through in that front row.
Yeah, and I think anyone who's in the game, they just really want, especially in the front row, you want 3 players in each position that can handle their business. And even if we lose, some of our more senior players, even if we lose, Wyn Jones, even if we lose Ken Owens and Elias, even if Samson doesn't return, if Will Griff buggers off, if Sebastian goes to Scotland, that many players can leave, and we're still okay. We're still looking good. And I know he's only featured, I think, once off the bench is young Sam O'Connor. And he has been a mainstay in the Llanelli RFC front row, and is one of the few places that's coming out with credit from the Welsh Premiership. And I think he's only 20, So, and like you said, it does take a while for props and for, especially front five forwards to bed in at senior level. So for him to be consistently Welsh Premiership holding his own, he might not be ready to come in for a full season, but a few bench spots here and there, we just do have that depth there, which is lovely. And I just still can't get over we've got 5 front rowers in the Welsh under-20 squad. I mean, that is just... And one of our loose head is in the under-18s, which, it just says something more. He's probably not going to play this season, or if he does, he's only going to get a few minutes against Italy. But the fact that we've got an under-18 boy, a loose head, in the Wales under-20s, that's nuts. I mean, I know young players get up there, but for a front row forward to be that young and in the Welsh under-20s, that can only say good things about this boy's potential and future.
And I think a lot of that credit goes to Phil John, mate. He's the work that he does with the academy boys is coming through, and even with the senior boys. And then, you go from someone like Phil John, and then you hand them on to
Ben Franks.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, there's some real quality of coaching, and it shows what that quality of coaching can do. When you invest in players from a skill point of view, you do get the end result. So, yeah, the person I'm impressed with most is Kemsley Mathias. Because he wasn't a big name coming through. He wasn't, he's just stuck at the work, and he's really, really worked at it. And, I'd probably say he's either number 1 or number 2 in the club at the minute,
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I was hearing talk from some people earlier in the season, and they were saying, once Mathias is, fully fit, he's going to take things by storm. And at the time, Stephen Thomas was playing incredibly well. And I was just thinking, this is a young boy. I think he's 22, 23. He's a prop. It's never an easy position, but, let's give him some time. And I've said it in the past few weeks as well, just his performances have been outstanding. He fits in massively well. He's our number 2 behind Wyn, and with Wyn being that's my opinion. Obviously, some people might have different opinions or whatever, but even when Wyn is away for as long as he is, and when you get an older player who does pick up a few extra knocks, we're looking at Mathias is going to be starting at least 10 games a season. And he's, like I said, he's 22, 23. That is brilliant. And if he continues on his trajectory, I'm not going to, boost over and say he should be getting capped right now. But I'm going to say if this trajectory carries on, it won't be too long in the future when he gets drafted in, even if it's just to take a look at him. Because, like I said, his work around the park is up there. It's on level with with that professional standard, and his scrummaging. Okay, he's a loose head, so I'm a little bit biased here. Tight heads have the hard job. Loose heads are just there to make up numbers. But
you're going to be popular.
It's just my own opinion. It's just my own opinion of playing across the front row. I loved playing tight head because it was just so much work to do. And half your body's not really doing much when you're on the loose. You're like, my arm's just flopping by you. I just let dangle it on him. I mean, I all joking aside, because it's not exactly easy. I'm just taking a piss from my own experiences. but no, a tight head is so much more difficult, technically, in my own opinion, than loose head. But his scrummaging has been brilliant, and he's not taking a backward step. And even when he's getting overpowered, his shape and his form doesn't alter. He's moving back, and he's not dropping down, because what we tend to see a lot of is when a front row or any singular player is getting beaten, he's getting overloaded, the instinct or what happens is they just collapse. And what I'm seeing with Kemsley is his foot position and the way they move straight down. And okay, it's not going to help in the effect that we're going to somehow win the ball, but it prevents a penalty going against us, and that shouldn't be understated. And that's something that he's been doing brilliantly well all season.
Yeah. I think the danger is now that you look at people like Kemsley Mathias and then Dan Davis and Tuipulotu and Dane Blacker and Costello and Eddie James. Eddie James had a fantastic debut.
About time.
Roberts. Yeah, but do you know what I mean? And then you're going, all right, okay, there's, that's the core of the team going forward. And the chances are most of them are going to get taken for Wales. And as soon as we start building that squad, it'll get kind of not ripped apart, but the backbone of it. I can see the backbone of that squad after this World Cup being taken for Wales, or who knows what's going to happen with Welsh rugby. But do you know what I mean?
I can understand your fear, and I'm just, I've always been club before country, and that's my mainstay. Is you got to do your business for your club, your region, before you even think about international duty. And in that regard, I don't rate Gatland as a progressive attacking coach. And for me personally, his reign has damaged more players than it has helped. And I'm talking specifically about the players who are younger, third choice in their position, and they just get left holding tackle bags for 6-7 weeks at a time, no game time, no nothing, and then eventually it affects their form and their confidence, and those players just dwindle off. I mean, and I'm referring to someone like Rodri Williams, Tavis Noyle, Ale Davis as scrum halves, who are perfect examples of players who showed massive talent, massive ability, and they were just squandered within that Welsh squad to basically go on and be bang average players when they could have been so much more. And I'm hoping in that side of it that Gatland stays and he keeps away from the players who are on form, which is what he does.
But so, we said this at the start of the season, didn't we? We said that it didn't look like we were going to have many players in the Welsh team, and what that would mean is it would allow it allows Dwayne Peel to kind of build a squad, to build like a regular 15 or a regular 23. And that's exactly what's happened. We're pretty much steady with who we're selecting, and the players that are there have had a chance to develop around each other. They're developing the style of play. They know what's coming, and that familiarity is what you need. And that's what was missing at the start of the season, or part of what was missing at the start of the season, and the ability to tackle. But, that understanding of each other was missing. And now that it's there, that positivity is definitely coming. So you say, taking somebody out of that system to hold a tackle bag for 8 weeks, 10 weeks, it's just a pointless exercise, isn't it? It doesn't do anyone any good.
Well, if we look at our own 23 now, and you're saying about the building that consistency, over the last 9 games, there have only been 9 changes, as in 9 new boys come into the starting 15 who weren't involved the week before. So you're talking about consistency. Okay, it's not one player every week. It's one week, 2, another 0 1 week. But it's that sort of consistency that does help and build a proper squad.
And that is definitely paying off for us, definitely paying. So who were the key players that stood out for you on the weekend, and who were the players that deserve a shout?
Oh, who doesn't deserve a shout? That's the question. I mean, he got man of the match, so we do have to talk about Sam Lowsey. And he deserved that try. I'm really angry about that. He deserved that try. The ref told him he was okay.
Yeah.
If the ref tells you you're okay, you shouldn't allow a TMO to overrule you. Unless it's a foot in touch. You shouldn't let the TMO overrule you. I'm a firm believer in that. You need to trust yourself and just go, look, I know you're saying I've messed up by you, but I've said something on the field that what I saw was okay, and I'm letting it carry on. But
when he picks up that Scottish 9, the Edinburgh 9, moves the ball so it's flat, and he moves the ball and stands it up. Now, to me, if you're moving that ball, you have possession of the ball. Yeah, the ball, you don't magically kind of move the ball from one position to another. You had to have possession of the ball. And if you've got possession of the ball, then the ball is out of the ruck. If you then leave the ball there, then that's offside because you moved the ball forward and you left it in the ruck. So either way, I think he was hard done by on that because the ball is flat and then he picks the ball up and kind of twists it around so that he can pick it up and do a box kick. So one way or the other, I think it's one of those grey areas about, the first look at it and go, no, he was still in the ruck. And then you look at it again and you go, actually, he's got possession of the ball. And if he's got possession of the ball, then, what is the rule about having possession of the ball?
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And it is something that needs to be cleared up and something that, I didn't pay as much attention to it on our side of the game as I probably should have, considering I'm going to comment on Edinburgh's. But every time we know about this caterpillar, we know about how it's a tactic for the box kick and whatever. But when I was watching them, and from what I know is, to be a part of a ruck, maul, whatever, you need to have a full arm bind. And that's when you're considered a part. If you've only got a hand on, you're not bound. And quite a few times he was moving that ball out under players who hadn't even got their hand on the ruck yet, never mind a full arm. And that's something that it does bug me a little bit. I get that the kicking is such a massive part of the game now, which it doesn't always bode well for the fan when you have a bit of ping pong, but it's those little sides of the game that need to be cleared up, just trying to make the product a bit better, and just to try and stop this slowing down. I know you've got to slow down the game depending on momentum and all this stuff, but do it legally. Don't just try and wing it and hope it comes off, because the amount of times, like you said, he was moving that ball back and it weren't under a single player and he was just allowed to leave it there. I mean, I think there was a few times that he was on the left side behind his ruck. His player was binding on to the right side, and he was just pulling the ball in a straight line. And it's like, it's not under anybody. And then when he gets to the foot, he just sort of tucks it in next to it. It's like that ball is clearly out of the ruck under the, it's got to be underneath a player.
But then Lousy just kind of destroyed them. Every one of his kicks was, I think he charged 3 kicks down and caused havoc around it. So,
he could have had more.
Yeah.
He really could have had more, because there was a couple that he didn't attempt to charge down on, and the time that he took on those ones, he was really lucky. Lousy was like, okay, I'm not going to do this one.
But so the other player that I thought had a really good game is Steph Evans, who we've been talking about Steph Evans for a while, and he tried at centre, and we thought he was better at centre probably than he was on the wing at the minute. But I thought he just had one of his best games for such a long time. He was just everywhere, and he was offloading, and he was flicking around the back, and he was dropping players with his shoulder. It was like the Steph of old with a little bit extra. And full credit to him. It would have been really easy for him to take the money and run. I've got no doubt that he's been offered an opportunity to go to France or England or Japan or wherever. But he's stuck at it because he wants to be a Scarlet. He wants to play for Wales. And I really, really hope now, I think he's 6 tries behind Tommy Bowe or something like that for the all-time try scorer. I would love to see him get that this season. I know it's a bit of a hard task with the running at the end of the year, but he just needs one decent game where he gets a couple of tries or a hat trick or whatever, and all of a sudden it looks very, very doable, But yeah, full credit to him because he's really kind of knuckled down, and he doesn't seem to be a player that people rave about, But
yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, we had that stage in his career back in 2016, 2017, where he was a younger player who was setting things alight, and people were like, get him in the Wales squad, he's that good. And now, and he's admitted this himself in interviews and so much, that his defence has been a massive work on and is still a work on now. But he has improved that massively. And I think apart from one drop ball early in the first half, which, we should have kept possession and we should have moved through the phases, but it wasn't a try scoring opportunity. It wasn't even a chance of a clean break or nothing. So it's nothing major to be disheartened about. He is industrious. He does his job. He is a solid regional player. And I think there's a little bit too much talent on the wingers at the minute, especially with, the older generation still getting picked, as in Alex Cuthbert, etc. But there's still a chance that he could, be involved in a Wales squad. Maybe not get many more caps, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him pick up maybe another cap in 2021 when the Lions are on, or maybe bring him back in for some autumn internationals just to see, look, okay, he's playing really well. Let's get him back in. Let's see where he actually stands. Has he improved over the last few years?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm not bothered about Wales not picking him because it's definitely benefiting the Scarlets. But for him, he's absolutely the bit that I think is holding him back is his haircut. If he got rid of that stupid bloody mullet and he actually had a decent sodding haircut, I think
leave him alone.
Leave
him alone.
I'm just like, Steph, come on, fella, let's sort the hair. Come on, I'll do it for you myself. I'll get the clippers. We'll sort this out now, son. But
you've got a serious grudge against this haircut, man.
You can't stand it.
We're never going to hear the end of it. I mean, I think he's going to be listening to this.
He is.
And he's going to go, you know what? I'm going to make it worse for him. Yeah. I'm going to think of something.
He's going to dye it blonde or something, isn't he? He's going to dye it blonde with like a green Mohican streak down the middle or something.
Yeah, I was thinking he's got to go Mohican or something now and make sure it's spiked properly. And there's so much bloody gel and product in it. It's not even going to waver him, but he gales 60 wins or something.
Yeah, no. So, the one. So the one other bit, the one other incident in there to talk about is where Joe Roberts has a little bit of afters with the Edinburgh backline, and why I don't know, because he was the one in the right. I just think Edinburgh were rattled, in all honesty, but it was the bit where he goes through, everything stops and what have you, and then it all just kicks off, and I couldn't see why. It just kind of, do you know what I mean? It just kind of kicks off, and normally there's somebody got tackled, or there was a short arm, or somebody said something, just nothing, and it was like, right, I'm having you, bang, and it's bizarre.
Yeah, it was quite weird, from the incident you're talking about. The ball went back into the Edinburgh 22. The ref blew for a penalty. I think it was Cal's high tackle. But as the whistle went, Roberts was, already committed to a tackle. He half pulled out, so he didn't cause much damage, but he just bumped into the player. And then as he started walking away, his eyes were still on the player that he'd half tackled. And then Mark Bennett just just come in, both hands, just smash. You're going over by. And I don't understand why. And, it's okay. We all like seeing that side of the game, probably not against our own players. But we like seeing that argy-bargy, that bit of niggle. But, for the ref to not even say, calm it down now, and I'm not letting that go any further, which is what a ref should have done, because that could have been the starting point that escalated into something much worse. It didn't, just because of how much we smashed them. I got to say that. But, it's a nothing incident, but it's got to be addressed, which is the main point.
But what I think happened is Edinburgh just kept winding themselves up. I think people have still got this attitude that we saw from the Dragons, we saw from Cardiff, saw from the Ospreys to a certain extent. Scarlets, poor discipline, and you need to get them wound up. You need to do something. You need to rattle them, and then they'll start giving away yellow cards. And I think that side of our game has disappeared now. I don't see that side of our game so much as it was at the start of the season. But I think that's what Edinburgh were looking to do. They were looking to wind people up and start pulling yellow cards out. And it didn't work. Just didn't.
Yeah, it's no secret that our discipline in regards to cards hasn't been the best. I mean, we shipped 18 cards. I think 4 of them reds. And, the closest team, behind us is on 11. So it is a fair difference. Though if you do look at the last few matches, I mean, no yellow against Edinburgh. I thought the yellow against Joe Roberts against the Bulls was a little bit harsh. But they're not cynical. Like the last cynical one we had was, Callum Mahoney trying to drop Moriarty. So it seems as though that side has leveled out. I think early on in the season, and even through to December, it was more frustration of we are playing better than what we are getting results for, and I think that was a massive contributor to that side of it. And now that we've started turning things around, we started picking up wins, that frustration isn't there anymore. So the hemorrhaging of cards and penalties is just gone. The reason for them has disappeared, so they've disappeared.
So I know we'll talk about this a bit more next week, but our next game is Munster away. So we talk about big challenges. Munster started the season the same way we did, with a poor run of form, but they're up to 4th now, and we're not. So massive challenge coming up against Munster, especially the way they played against the Ospreys. I mean, they were awesome against the Ospreys, and full respect to them for it. But how are we nervous, or are we looking forward to that game?
I'm a happy anxious, and going to Limerick, regardless if we're playing in Tormand or if we're playing in one of the lesser grounds, it's always an experience, and I've never done an away trip to another country bar in England, and I really want to do it. And Limerick is up there in one of my top places that if I ever do decide to go, I'm going. But looking at the Ospreys game, and I'm using this as my guideline to where they are, because international break, you've got to use the most recent games. You can't look at the form from the season because it's just not the same squad.
Yeah.
And Ospreys made Munster look good, in my opinion. I thought that the Ospreys were incredibly poor, especially in their first up tackling and their scramble defence. And I think we can attribute almost all of Munster's tries to, half-assed tackling, or not so much laziness, but not being in position.
Yeah.
And for me, that is something that we are not going to do against them. So I'm not going to say we're going to go out there and we're going to smash them and we're going to have a nice easy bonus point win or whatever, because it's always going to be a difficult game, even if they're playing poorly. Going to Limerick is never an easy game. Though from what I've seen, I've got a big smile on my face, and I'm like, this is a challenge. but it's one that I think that we're more than capable of doing, especially given the last two matches that we've played, both of us.
And I'm the same. I'm looking forward to somebody actually challenging us and giving us a good game again, because, like I say, I'm still feeling a little bit kind of having gone through what we went through at the start of the season. You're just expecting it all to kind of fall down around your ears, and every game that we play now, and we play the way we did against Edinburgh, you just build that confidence more. You're just getting that actually we have sorted it. We are back on form, and I think that's playing Munster, especially playing Munster away, is a big challenge that I think we need. I think this is a game now that Dwayne will be looking at and going like, yeah, this will tell us really where we are now. Are we a top four side? Can we be a top four side? This is the game that's going to tell us if we are or if we aren't.
Yeah, and it's not just the Munster game. The fact is we've got Sharks at home, the next one up. We've got a bit of respite in Europe in between then, but then we've got Glasgow away. So we've got, three teams who are, they are top 8. Munster and Sharks probably be feeling that when they're playing their best, they should be top 4.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be a good gauge on where we're actually at over the coming weeks. Yeah. And I'm just annoyed that we've got to wait weeks to watch for these next 2 games.
Then, when you listen to Dwayne after the game on Saturday, so we had a good 2-week run into this game, and now we've got a couple of days off, and then we got another 2-week run into the next game. So, they're obviously looking at the videos, they're looking for the weak spots, they're looking at where they can attack, and then working out where they can do it and putting a game plan in specific to the opposition. So I'm
I'm enjoying watching the Scarlets. I mean, obviously, anyone who is a Scarlet fan, or actually anyone who's really a sort of neutral Welsh rugby fan at the minute, will be enjoying watching the Scarlets. And obviously, I've never been involved in higher end coaching as much as I would love to at this point. But for me personally, when it comes to you're looking at analysing other teams, I'm kind of on the mindset of 80% of my training week is set in stone. It doesn't matter who we're playing. That 80% isn't changing. I'm doing what I'm doing and I'm cracking on with it. And it's only that last 20% that you're looking at. Okay, what extra tidbits do we need to work on? What can we do that will affect the opposition? So majority of what's going on, I think, has been very consistent, and we're paying less and less attention to our opposition. Obviously, with due respect, obviously, because there's always that line of respect that you've got to give to any opposition. You have got to look at them. You have got to see where you need to touch up, what you can look at. But at the same time, it looks as though we're focusing a lot of our attention on ourselves, and that is what's giving us a lot of dividends at the minute.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, well, we'll return to the Munster game next week, but for now, let's have a little look at some of the other. So we said last week, let's hope that we come back with 3 positive fixtures from the Scarlets over the weekend, and we definitely did. And I think the standout result from the weekend was actually the girls' team.
Yes, I'm glad you said that, because I'm with you 100%.
So I spoke to Daryl last week, and he was very positive about what was happening within the girls' program and what have you, and how we're really finding our feet again, and the future is quite bright for the girls' team. I think they were a bit disappointed with the 5-5 draw in RGC, but it was a game that either side could have won by 20 odd points. So then to go up against Cardiff, Cardiff had basically won the championship, and were all singing or dancing. So to win 19-17 regardless of how that win comes about, regardless of whatever it was, to put a win over them is fantastic. But then to do it and play some good rugby as well was, just superb for the girls. Delighted for them.
Yeah, it's a brilliant result, and we are the ones that inflicted the league champions' only defeat of the season, and that's enough in itself to make you smile and to make you proud. And I know you just mentioned the earlier RGC game. I think the girls are going to be kicking themselves for their performance against the Dragons, because they lost that game and they would really off point. Something didn't go quite right in that game, and if they turned up and they actually played as they can play, they would be league champions right now.
Yeah.
And I think it only bodes well for the future, because a lot of the under 18s girls are they're year 12s. A lot of them, there's not a great deal of year 13s in that. So it's going to be a good squad coming into next season, and hopefully, like Darryl said, hopefully we'll get a few more fixtures involved for these girls next year, and we'll get more of a chance to actually go and see them, because I would have loved to have been able to go and watch them. I've got 4 girls, 2 of them are rugby loving at the minute. The older one isn't interested, and the younger one's too young, but they would love to go and watch some girls play rugby. And I'm really hopeful that even if it's on the training pitch or it's on one of the local clubs grounds, I want to go and take my own kids to see these girls play.
Yeah, and the way that the women's season is structured is very different to the men's season. So if anybody wants to know more, then certainly have a listen to Darryl's podcast from last week, because he was really, really informative and really kind of went into depth about the differences between the two and what they hope will come out of it. So, fingers crossed, like you say, next season the women's game or the girls' game will be a lot more kind of in your face, shall we say? So,
yeah.
And then we got them
on carrying on the girls' side of it. Something that I've heard some rumours about is that there's not going to be regional women's teams, at least not in the near future, which is a little bit disappointing. I know Darryl touched on it a bit last week, saying that they haven't had a senior women's for a while, and from what I'm hearing is that all sort of senior women's rugby, all the money is heading towards further education facilities, because they're willing to invest some of their own money, which obviously, if you're going to put your own money in, there's more chance of you getting the agreement. But I think it's a little bit disheartening that we're not going to see a Scarlets, a Cardiff, Dragons, Ospreys women's teams. But at the same time, at least there's money going into the girls' game, and there's going to be something for them to look forward to.
Yeah, and for me, to not have a regional team, to not have a regional women's team would be, I think it's the wrong way to go forward. I agree that, more investment needs to go into the educational and into universities and colleges and build it from there. But the long-term goal has got to be to have, the equivalent of a women's URC. Whichever way around it goes, that needs to be the goal that we're working towards, because I was talking to my mate who I said before, so the girl that I used to coach is now playing Cardiff girls. So for her to train with Cardiff girls, her dad is every Friday night picking her up from college, taking her into Cardiff, waiting 2-3 hours in Cardiff, taking her back to college, back up on Saturday or back up on Sunday, take it to a game. That's a full day out, back to college, back home. And then some weeks they might train on a Tuesday or a Wednesday as well. So that's back up to college, pick her up back. It's a massive commitment for these girls. And, with the boys, you can almost understand it, because there's a bigger goal at the end. There's a monetary goal. There's a Do you know what I mean? There's a possibility of a professional contract to play rugby professionally at the end of it. For the girls, without having a regional team, the only goal is to go and play in England somewhere. You know, that's your goal, and it doesn't seem like that's what you want to be saying to women and to girls. Is if you do really, really well, you can go and play your rugby 150 miles away. That's not what you want to do, like, you know.
Yeah, and it is something that needs to be looked at. And I know that, both sides, men's and women's, the development pathways, obviously more has been put on the girls in recent times with, Nigel Walker being, having almost full remit on that. And we have seen some positive changes there. There's going to come a time in, I hope, the near future that we go from just having a professional national squad to having professional clubs, and however many that ends up being, obviously that's going to be up for debate, and it will build over time based on the revenue that they can pull in. But I am really hopeful that we get to see a stronger girls pathway, and we get to see these opportunities for these girls to earn a living. Not just earn a bit of money, earn a living. Now, I mean, okay, I'm not expecting them to be paid on the same level as the men just because the men bring more money into the game. And I know there's a lot of talk about equal pay and all that. But for me, you've got to be talking about equal pay in terms of percentage of revenue. If the men get paid 5% of the revenue that they bring in, then the girls should be paid 5% of the revenue they bring in. That sort of level, because the girl side is going to take a long time to build the revenue up, and we know that. So it's a slow work on, but I'm hoping in the near future we move from whatever is now 30 professional contracts, maybe we move it up to 60, and then in a couple of years we build it up to 90, and then eventually to 120, and then we're in a case of, yes, we've got enough money, we've got enough revenue that we can start getting 3-4 proper professional sides.
And I think the key to that is having a plan, and that's where Welsh rugby falls down at the minute. It just doesn't have a plan. Its ability to look forward and to see what's coming is non-existent. So fingers crossed, out of all of the rubbish that's going on at the minute, let's hope that the women's game is included in the plan that goes forward, and somehow we come out of this better.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's skip over that. The men's game, I had the pleasure of going and watching the under 18s on Sunday afternoon. RGC travelled down with, I think, half of North Wales travelled down.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'll be fair to them, as supporters, they absolutely came and supported. They shouted, they screamed, they cheered. There were a couple of them that were told by the ref and the touch judge that they were kind of overstepping the mark, and they were, and they went to be fair to them. They went back and they kind of calmed down a bit, but yeah, they were really, really up for it. RGC were really, really up for that game. And the first 10 minutes, well, not even that, the first 5 minutes, we put 2 tries on them in the first 5 minutes. And RGC just looked blown away. They had 3 players off injured in the first 10 minutes. And they just didn't look like there was a lot of enthusiasm. There was a lot of running around. And then we just put the ball in space and we scored tries. And it was very easy. And then they started coming back into it. They scored some fantastic tries, some really, really good, fantastic tries. There was one try they scored where we cleared it from our 22, and instead of clearing it to the touchlines, we just hoofed it up the middle. And their fullback caught it, took it forward, couple of rucks, chip over the top, regathered into another ruck, and their centre just ran it straight through into the post. And it was the kind of try that if you saw on a senior pitch, you'd go, wow, that was fantastic. So, full credit to them, because they came and they didn't sit back. They absolutely gave everything for that game. It was the last game of the season, the last run out, and they gave everything to win that game. And at one point, well, for most of the second half, they were in control of that game. And we found ways back into it. We wore them down. We did the same things that we've done all season, which is really, really frustrating. We created overlap after overlap after overlap, and we didn't use it. We took crash balls. We didn't. When you look at the way that the men's team play the game, the senior team, and then you look at the way that the under-18s are playing, and they look like they're from two different clubs. There's nothing there. There's no freedom to play. And if we're going to be, we were talking about how we're developing props coming all the way through, and that's a good thing. If we're going to develop 15 players or 23 players that can all play that similar game, then we need to play that game all the way through the club. That needs to filter down into the 18s, into the 16s, even to the under 15s, about playing what's in front of you. There was one bit on Sunday where, and I without a word of a lie, you'll if anybody watches the video on this, you will see that we had a 6-on-1 overlap. A 6-on-1 overlap, and we took the ball into a ruck. And you've got players. So I was obviously on the touchline. It was my side of the pitch. And the two players that are standing closest to the touchline are absolutely screaming for that ball. Out. Oh, yes, come on. I want it. And in the end, we screwed that up and we didn't score. We went into a ruck and then we took the ball out and we condensed the space. So we went from running a 6-on-1 in half of the pitch to a running, trying to run a 4-on-4 inside the 15. And then we were trying to put players into space with fancy hands, and we knocked the ball on because we were trying to. If we'd have done that when we had a 6-on-1 and half the pitch to play in, one of those 6 would have scored. So it's really frustrating to watch because there's a lot of good players out there, but if we played the way the senior team were, well, we'd be top of that championship. Comfortable, because we should have beaten Cardiff for the first game of the season. We'd more than done enough to beat Cardiff in that first game of the season, without a doubt, and it would have built from there. When we played Dragons at home, they barely touched the ball for most of that game. So to come away with only 3 wins, 2 of them against RGC, is quite disappointing. It is disappointing, and all the Ospreys had is forwards. They didn't have a running back line. They just had forwards, and we should be able to counteract that. So, disappointing end to the season for the under-18s, but there's a lot of learnings that can be taken in there, and certainly a lot of learnings that need to be taken into next season for the under-18s on that.
Well, a lot of the style of play and that decision making has got to come down to the coaches, because they are the ones who are enabling these boys to play. And if they are telling them, you go into a ruck, it doesn't matter what's outside you go into a ruck, then it's not going to develop positivity. It's not going to develop any sort of attacking game. It doesn't matter. He said, you've got a 50-meter clear run. Go on, make sure you find someone to get tackled by. That's basically what you're being told.
Yeah.
So we can't exactly comment on the specifics of what these coaches are saying to these players. Unfortunately, I'd love to be able to be a fly on the wall and whatnot, but something just doesn't seem quite right at the minute there.
Well, we'll skip over that for now. We'll talk about that at the end of the season, maybe.
It is the end of the season for them.
Yeah, it is. But we let's look at the championship. Let's look at the championship. So, results from last week. Then Narberth home game against Bedwas, which they lost. Which we both predicted that as a fairly decent Narberth win, in all honesty. But they lost that 20 points to 13. And that kind of stuffs the end of the season, really, for Narberth now.
I don't know what happened in that game, because from some of the accounts I've read, Narberth, they took an early lead. They they were going good for the first 20 or 30 minutes or so, and it just seems as though it's all imploded. And okay, I was loving Narberth at the start of the season. The results they were putting in. Okay, they lost to the likes of Neath and Barguide, but you're always going to lose to them at this level. But the results, the positivity, I was bouncing from, and it seems that something's just disappeared now. Like the sparkle has fizzed out, and I'm really disheartened by this.
Well, they're now 7th in the table. The next game is obviously they're not playing this weekend. There are actually a couple of games this weekend which are rearranged from earlier in the season, but their next game now is at home against Neath on the 4th of March. So, that's a hard game to pick yourself up. It's not a hard game to pick yourself up for, but it's a hard game to see anything other than a Neath win. But they got 2 weeks to prepare for that game, so fingers crossed on that.
Yeah, so, I mean, when they went to the Knoll early in the season, it was a 33-23 loss, and that was a real positive. It might have been a loss, but that was a real positive in Narberth's season. Yeah.
Let's have a look at League One West then. So Crymych had a decent win over Velin Foyle. Aberystwyth lost to Gothainen, and Pembroke obviously lost to Clelley Wanderers. Newcastle Emlyn had a decent win over Hendy. So Crymych was 22-19. Aberystwyth lost 2017. Pembroke 33-7, and Newcastle Emlyn was 45-38, which leaves Crymych in quite a comfortable place at the top of the league there. There's only Gowerton are in second and 3 points behind, but Crymych have got 2 games in hand on Gowerton. I think the side that might trip everybody up is Newcastle Emlyn, who are in third, but they've only played 9 games. So
I'll be honest. I'm in that division. I'm looking at Llangennech as the ones who are going to come from nowhere, because I think they've only played 7 games.
They played 7 games, yeah.
And I think they are going to, because the results they've been putting in, obviously there's only been 7 of them, but they have been incredibly strong, and they were in action in the Division 1 Cup on the weekend. They lost 12-8 away to St. Peter's, so the league is now all they've got left. So I think they're going to come in, and I think it's going to be a tight run. I think it is a 3-horse race turning into Crymych, Newcastle Emlyn, and Llangennech. And once we get some of these rearranged fixtures played, we get a better view on what we're actually looking at, what Crymych need, what Newcastle need, what Llangennech need. But at the minute, I think Crymych are top of the table, and you'd rather have the points on the table than the games in hand.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the other end of the table, Pembroke, and I haven't seen where this has come from, but the points deducted and are now on -4. So the least said about that, the better, I think, mate. We'll just skip over that one. At some point, I'll find out what it was for, but -4 is, So Division 2 then, Division 2 West, Fishguard 38, Ponteverum 6, Tenby 53, Loughor 25, and we thought that was going to be quite a tight game, that Tenby game.
And then down in Loughor is normally quite difficult, so that was very pleasing to see.
Yeah, and then Milford 11, Nantgaredig 32. So not bad set of results. Tenby now in third place, but again, they played 13, and the two sides ahead of them, Nant Garedig and Pontedilais, both got. They've only played 11, so there's games in hand for the others, and then Fishguard comfortable in mid-table, Milford one off the bottom. So, I think Fishguard, they got the opportunity to go up a couple of places. It's really tight in the middle of the table. I can't see Tenby making the top two, in all honesty. But
just looking at that table and looking, and you've got Kidwelly and Buryport both around them who haven't played as many games either. So I don't know if top half is even going to be the end result for Tenby. They are probably looking more mid-table along with Fishguard. It could end up being a good shootout between Fishguard and Tenby for top Pembrokeshire team.
So let's have a look then in Division 3 West. Haverfordwest beat Aberaeron 29-24. Cardigan lost to Larne 34-8. Quins lost to Neyland 22-8. St David's put an absolute tonking on Llanybother 52-18. And Langham, close game against Tregaron, they lost 19-8. So, it hasn't really changed the table that much. Yeah. But
I'll be honest, mate, I'm in tears when I saw on Saturday what happened in Tregaron. I don't know how it happened. Yeah. They haven't won a game all season, and St David's done such a wonderful job against Llanybother, and for Langham to not ride it home for me and sort Tregaron out, it broke my heart. It really did.
Well, if we look at the table, we've got St Clair's are in second place, behind Lampeter. Then we've got Aberaeron in third, Larne in fourth, Neyland fifth, Haverfordwest sixth, St David's seventh, Cardigan in eighth, Quins in ninth. Then we've got Llanybother in 10th, Langham in 11th, and Tregaron at the bottom. So, again, the top end of the table, anywhere really from Neyland up. Potentially, Haverfordwest got 2 games on Neyland. So, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a crazy run into the end of the season because the top end of that table is looking tight, mate. And that could be any one from probably 5 or 6 teams will be having a good end of season party. So, yeah.
And special mention does have to go to St Clair's and Lampeter, who they're clearly top of the table for obvious reasons, and they weren't in action this week because they were both in cup action, and they've both made it through to the Division 3 semi-finals. Lampeter beating Llanara 16-12 away, and St Clair's beating Mould 35-21 at home. So those two are really firing on all fronts, and it's going to be a hell of a showdown between those two when they do come to meet.
Absolutely. So all that's left to do is make our quick predictions for the England game. Let's assume that there's going to be an England game. And what are your predictions for the England game, mate? And then I purposely left this to last because I haven't heard any announcements while we've been on air. So it could be a crazy one. So yeah, what's your thoughts on England? What's your score prediction for England?
I don't know. It's so difficult with everything that's going on, and just looking at the England-Italy game, they relied 95% of that game on the forwards, and even though we've been getting a couple of dump-ins, our forwards have been going well. So I do think them coming to Cardiff is going to be massive in terms of the way the result's going to swing. I reckon we're going to pip it because I don't think England are just quite ready to start playing the ball further than they 10, especially if they insisting on Marcus Smith staying on the bench. So I'm going to go for a nice simple, probably something like 18-15 win.
Yeah. So I've already predicted a restaging of the 93-10-9 win where we nick a try in the first half and stick a penalty over and then spend the rest of the game defending our line. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to go with a repeat of the 93 Ian Evans try where he skinned Rory Underwood. And something along those lines, a 10-9 win. Well, I'd settle for a 3-0 win with a dodgy penalty on 82 minutes, but who knows? Who knows, mate?
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, let's hope there is a game, obviously.
Yeah. Well, we'll discuss all of that next week. We'll go through all of the off-field stuff next week, and we'll discuss the Scarlets game against Munster next week as well. And other than that, mate, we are all done. We are all finished.
We're all done. Yes,
we
I'm the one who messed up this week. I didn't forget anything. I tried to add something in.
Add something in there, wouldn't it? Matt, all the best, mate. I shall catch up with you again next week. Enjoy your rugby, my friend.
Yeah, it's brilliant talking to you, Lee. I'll see you again, but.
See you, mate.
Ta-ra.
Bye. You have been listening to the Westerer is Besterer podcast from the Scarlet Supporters PEMS team. You can follow us on Twitter on Scarlet PEMS, find us on Facebook with Scarlet Supporters Pembrokeshire, or email us on scarletspems@gmail.com. And remember, West is best, but Westerer is Besterer. Cheers.
Sports Social Podcast Network.